Yesterday, after the Formula 1 qualifying, a horrible accident occurred in the FIA Formula 2 World Championship race. On lap 2 of the race, coming into Eau Rouge and Radion, Giovanni Alesi lost control of his car and went into the barrier backwards, knocking off his front wing. He bounced back on to the circuit and, taking avoiding action, Anton Hubert in the Ardennes hit the wall at the exit of Radion at high speed. Now, what would have normally been a very light incident at Radion, unfortunately, as he came back onto the circuit, he was struck by the car of Juan Manuel Correa at full speed. It was a horrific accident which split both cars apart and breaking the survival cell of both cars. Juan Manuel Correa was airlifted to hospital yesterday and was treated with suspected minimal spinal damage but 2 broken legs. Unfortunately, the race was red flagged straight away and the whole paddock fell into silence as we waited on the news of the charming Frenchman of Anton Hubert. It's a very difficult time, as I'm sure you can understand. Now, unfortunately, an hour and a half after the race, we sadly lost Anton Hubert. The news was announced via the FIA Formula 2 press conference, and the whole paddock fell silent and into a deep state of mourning. He was just 22 years old. He was part of the Renault Sport Academy drivers of the future, and he certainly would have made it to Formula 1. He was the last ever GP3 champion in 2018 I should say, sorry, and he was absolutely spectacular. In 2011, in a Formula 4 category race, in his first season in single-seaters, he won 11 of the 21 races, becoming the champion. In the GP3, he won 2 races out of the 11, but became the World GP3 champion. A sad, sad loss in motorsport. The Formula 3 race this morning took place, as will the Formula 1 this afternoon, but everyone racing with very heavy hearts. Anton Hubert, 22 years old, sadly passed away yesterday in Belgium. Now, a few minutes ago, I spoke to our pit reporter and my dad, Ian Birch, about what happened yesterday as we were watching the race together, and here's what happened. So, Dad, you join me now. You don't know what to say in these situations. We were watching the race yesterday, but you sort of knew immediately that something was worse.
It was a much more serious accident than the norm. The fact that you could see that there was the front and rear of 2 of the cars there.
Yeah.
That was bad, and it's just you just get this feeling, don't you? Just like you did with Justin Wilson.
Yeah.
When Justin's car went down the track, and there was no attempt to
save the car.
Braking or. You knew that it was something serious, and unfortunately, it is serious. We were very lucky this morning in the F3 when Askelainen.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. It was.
But as we were trying to say on Thursday, it's a dangerous sport, and the poor lad's paid with his life, and it's awful.
The Formula 2 race this morning was cancelled. I know we were discussing this yesterday, but the whole meeting really should be cancelled. As we saw this morning in Formula 3 with that accident, their minds are not on it.
Well, that happens in all walks of life, and sometimes you do have to go on, but I don't think it's when you've got drivers driving at that sort of speed with not their full mind on the job. I think it's wrong. Senna should have taken the thing of if Senna had done the same as Gerhard Berger and not raced when their friend was killed the day before, we'd still have Senna. But he did, and he got killed. And in the end, it wasn't anything to do with his driving.
Yeah. It was. But
Hang on.
there is another factor as well that you've got to add into it as well. The fact that so many of the F1 drivers that are in today, like Charles Leclerc, Esteban Ocon.
Well, Charles Leclerc has also got the fact that he lost Jules. And, that brings that back into the forefront. He's known Hubert since he was a little boy, as is Gasly and the others, and they're only young, right? They've never seen it before, I don't think.
No. Yeah. It's going to be a difficult race later, and
it's never easy at any age.
No.
But the young tend to be fearless, and then when something like this happens, they realise their own mortality as well, and then they start thinking, like the rest of us, what a waste yesterday was. A waste of someone.
Martin Brundle said, after Senna and Ratzenberger died, that the next race in Monaco, he was looking around and seeing all the drivers that were only in their first year, and they were shell-shocked, as you said. So
everybody's shell-shocked.
Yeah.
They raced this morning, but I don't think anybody was up for it. It was just the fact that they didn't want to let down the TV audience.
Yeah, and nobody looks like they're ready. Yeah.
Your mum said maybe this will make them better drivers. Well, I hope it does.
Yeah.
Right?
It was.
But the accident itself was a category of errors.
Yeah.
Most traffic cops will tell you that an accident is not one single thing. Right? There's always two or three things that make an accident, especially a fatal accident like that. And we don't know what happened, but we do know that oil was dropped on the circuit during the Formula One.
Yes.
Qualifying. Don't say who it was.
No. Yeah.
Right, which team it was, and things like that. We know oil was put on the surface in two different places. There was also something to do with one of the sport races, and nothing was done about it. Right, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Whether it had an effect on it, I don't know. But something made young Alesi's car move
at
that point.
And it just kicked off the whole chain reaction.
That was the chain reaction. And the lads, Hubert's car bounced into the barriers, right? And then
Correa,
in an unfortunate thing, into the path of a car that was trying to avoid the lot in Correa. Correa was trying to avoid the lot, and the car spun into his path, and there's nothing he could do about it. And there was nothing anybody could have done about anything. Hubert couldn't have done anything to stop it.
No.
It's just one of them horrible things. And if you're going to watch most racing, that's going to happen.
Yeah. It's a harsh fact. On the back of every ticket, it still says motorsport is dangerous, and you can never be too safe.
No, I'm looking at Hubert's mum just there. And I thought she was quite brave this morning coming out before the Formula 3 race.
Yeah.
And, everybody's going to be upset about this, especially the French,
It's, as you said, it's another one.
French.
Yeah.
It brings back memories for everybody of different things in their lives. Right? And you just, I don't know what to say. I have seen it so often. I have seen it in Le Mans. I've seen it in IndyCar. And it's tragic every time it happens. Dan Weldon, Justin Wilson, and even on a press day, we lost the girl.
Yeah.
What's her name? I know she died a year later.
De Silva. De Silva.
De Silva.
Mm.
Right, we lost her, and we've lost.
A number of MotoGP riders, Lewis Salam in Moto 2, and that was weird because see, there's a memorial for him at the circuit, and when I was there, there's a massive banner and everyone's written everything on it and their memories of him. It's one of these situations where no matter what sport it is, in motorsport is a family. I mean, you saw in the IndyCar yesterday, they were all lining up at the end of the pit lane doing a minute's silence, and that's all the way in America. It's hit everybody. There's no champagne at any races this weekend at all across every category.
Well, why should there be?
Yeah, exactly.
Why should there be? You know, I know that they've got contracts, and that's why the champagne was put on this morning. But the team manager made sure that the three of them up there didn't touch the champagne, just picked them up and took them away, and that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's respect for the lads.
Absolutely. We're going to be in the commentary later, and we'll be on the podcast in a few days. But it's going to be tricky for everybody because it's one of these situations where it's the first time since Senna and Ratzenberger that we've raced the very next day after an accident that is claimed a life. And so that means none of these guys on the grid have had that before. And it's weird.
I'm not sure, but I think they have. What about Thingy's son in F3?
Henry Surtees, yeah. That's a good point.
Some of the ones on that grid today would have raced with Henry, wouldn't they?
Yes. Yeah, just a few of them. Grosjean, maybe.
That was a tragedy as well. We know what the French feel like today because we've had quite a few of our British drivers die in the recent years, especially in IndyCar.
Yes.
Dan Weldon, Justin Wilson, and in F3, as we just said, Henry Surtees. And it's always a tragedy when it happens, but you just got to you've got to respect with his mum coming out this morning and standing there, the family must be with it. So I don't like it, the fact that they're racing today, but if it's what the family wanted, then that's fine.
But it is going to be immensely hard.
It's not up to the likes of me, is it? It's up to Chase Carey went to see them yesterday, and in the F2 paddock, and they decided to cancel the F2 race.
Yeah.
But not the F3 or the Porsche or the Formula One, and at least he asked them, which is a lot of them don't.
Yeah. I'm okay
then.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. We'll see you later on. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks. Bye.
We race today in memory of Anton, and we will keep going, as Formula 1 always does. But my personal opinion, it's too soon. We shouldn't be racing. But as Megan said to me yesterday, why does it always take a death to improve the safety of these cars? And I'm inclined to agree with her. Everyone very shaken, and everyone very much aware of the danger of motorsport now, especially this morning after a Formula 3 crash as well at the circuit. Luckily the driver escaped unharmed, but it's a stark reminder of how dangerous these cars really are, and how dangerous the sport really is. It can never be entirely 100% safe. Famously, a quote saying that there's only 3 types of sport: bullfighting, motorsport, and I can't remember the third, boxing I believe, but everything else is just a game. These are Formula 1, a sport, and a whole motorsport family very much hit with this loss. we must try and get on with the weekend as the race is going on. But everyone is definitely going to be thinking of Anton Hubert, and it has cast a shadow over what should have been a great weekend. But unfortunately, it will not be. Let's take a look then quickly at the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship. What seems pointless now, but let's go on. After 3 weeks of Formula 1 being away, we are back. Round 13, the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. We come here as round number 13 of the season as we come onto this impressive circuit. So much history. It's a double-header weekend. Next weekend we're in Italy at Monza, the Italian Grand Prix, the home of Ferrari, before starting the flyaways. The Singapore Grand Prix on the 22nd of September. A week later, Russia on the 29th. Then a 2-week break before the Japanese Grand Prix on the 13th of October. Another break before Mexico, double headers with the United States Grand Prix. And then on to Brazil and the season finale of Abu Dhabi on the 1st of December. Lewis Hamilton has a 62-point advantage in the championship to his teammate of Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen is third. He's closing in on second of Valtteri Bottas with 2 wins in the last 4 races. Sebastian Vettel is in 4th place. He's in a battle with his teammate Charles Leclerc. Pierre Gasly now drops to Toro Rosso. He's in 6th and looks unlikely to remain there. Sainz is battling with an ill Kimi Raikkonen this weekend. Kvyat promoted to lead driver Toro Rosso. Lando Norris is 10th as well. Ricciardo 11th, Stroll 12th, Magnussen 13th from Hülkenberg. Alexander Albon, just 12 races in and with 16 points, is promoted to the team lead role of Red Bull. Perez 16th, Grosjean only with 8 points and looks to be dropped. Giovinazzi and Kubica on 1 point, and George Russell the only driver without a point on the current grid. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes are dominant. 438 points they are leading, well over 200 clear nearly of Ferrari on 288. They are 44 points clear of Red Bull. Red Bull promoting up Alexander Albon in hopes that he and Verstappen can close the gap to Ferrari for second in the title. McLaren are well ahead in 4th place. It's the battle for 5th between Toro Rosso, Renault and Alfa, and Racing Point that we were watching. Haas are dropping off that battle a little bit, and Williams are just happy they get money for scoring a point in the championship. It's the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa for 2019, and we are rearing to get going after a very long summer break. A very difficult Saturday here in Spa then, and we must do the qualifying report, but of course everyone's minds on what happened just after qualifying in the Formula 2 race with Anton Hubert. But we will continue on and we'll give you the qualifying report as it happened then as usual. So qualifying 1 as well, Charles Leclerc once again was on top of his performance. The session was only 2 minutes old, however, when the red flag came out as an engine blow-up for the Mercedes-powered Williams of Robert Kubica blew up spectacularly coming out of the Blanchimont area, coming into the bus stop, and of course that put him out. Now all the Mercedes engines are running Spec 3 this weekend, and already we've had 2 failures in Perez and Kubica, and we've also had problems with Stroll and now with Hamilton as well, so not a great situation overall. Mercedes, however, the delay was a welcome. They managed to repair Lewis Hamilton's car after he crashed in free practice 3 earlier on in the day. Leclerc was top of the timesheets, half a second quicker. Then Sebastian Vettel with Valtteri Bottas third, and Hamilton a second further back in 4th place as well. Knocked out of the session were Gasly, Sainz, Kubica, Russell as well. Because during the end of the session, Antonio Giovinazzi's engine blew up again on the way down to Eau Rouge and brought out the red flag and stopped the session early. On to qualifying 2 then, and it was once again Charles Leclerc who was dominating, but Sebastian Vettel was able to cut into his teammates' advantage here at Spa and gained a few tenths of a second. Hamilton went into third place as well. He was just ahead of Verstappen as well. The Dutchman Easter in fifth place, a tenth behind Bottas, who was fourth, and 3/10 of a second off the pace. Everyone went out for another run though with 5 minutes to go, bar Verstappen, Stroll and Albon. Albon, of course, starting from the back of the grid with his engine penalty, which means he started 14th in the qualified, but will go down further back on the grid. As a result, Grosjean ended up 11th fastest, and he was knocked out along with Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, Alexander Albon and Antonio Giovinazzi, who never took part in the session after his failure in qualifying number 1. An interesting Q2 then, but it was all shaping up nicely for qualifying 3. Q3 was very, very bizarre because at the start it was follow me leader. Max Verstappen went out first, followed by the two Mercedes and the two Ferraris, and the two Mercedes nearly making contact coming out of Stavelot as they were all trying to get a slipstream run in that first sector as you come out of the source, up Eau Rouge and Radion and down the Kemmel Straight. They were all looking for a tow where you are flat out for about 80% of that sector. So they were all following up. They nearly crashed into each other, and which resulted in a lock-up on both Bottas and Hamilton's tyres, which meant that they didn't set a fantastic qualifying 3 time on their first run. Leclerc, however, did go fastest overall in the beginning, with Vettel second, Bottas third, and Hamilton fourth, and Verstappen as well coming up there. But everyone knew it would have to take a second run, to which we got the third pole of the season for Charles Leclerc, with Sebastian Vettel alongside. It is the 63rd front row lockout for Ferrari, and just behind them is the two Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton starting third and Valtteri Bottas in fourth. Now, it's a very interesting result this, so let's first take a look at the qualifying classifications and have a look at how the starting grid currently lines up for the Belgian Grand Prix. Pole position goes to Charles Leclerc then. He starts on row 1 alongside his teammate Sebastian Vettel. Lewis Hamilton is third and Valtteri Bottas fourth on row 2. Row 3 sees Max Verstappen and Kimi Raikkonen. Row 4, Sergio Perez and Kevin Magnussen. Row 5, Romain Grosjean and Daniel Ricciardo, who has a grid penalty. Row 6, Lando Norris alongside Nico Hülkenberg. Row 7 sees Antonio Giovinazzi alongside Pierre Gasly. Row 8, George Russell and Carlos Sainz. Row 9, Lance Stroll and Alexander Albon. And row 10 for Danny Kvyat and Robert Kubica. However, it's going to be all change, so there are changes afoot here for the Belgian Grand Prix. It's live now on Sky Sports F1. It's a difficult weekend for everyone involved here at Spa-Francorchamps, but the race goes on. We'll be back tomorrow for the Grand Review podcast, as well as the F1 game on Tuesday, but we'll be back all next week at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. For now, we hope the F1 drivers have a safe race. Bye for now.